All right, YouTube Repo Man 64. Uh, I had one day off in 9 days, one day off. I've got still 3 more days to go, so I am beat. But I have to I'm gonna go live tonight on Departure Heaven. Hopefully I could have this uploaded. Probably not, because his starts at 8:30. By the time he brings guests on, it's 8:45 or 9. So I don't think I'll have time to upload this, but I wanted to get into the timeline. As you know, my timeline went quiet, or it goes quiet, uh, a couple of segments a couple of segments per year, and we're in one now. But a guy from at a Billboard for Christ, his name is Matt. He's been doing a lot of good work. And I think he's found now 7 or 8 different paths to July 3rd, July 4th. I can only find personally one, and it's 28 days or 21 days after when was it? I think it was the United States that bombed Iran, right? On June the 12th and 13th. I think that's or was that when Israel bombed? I don't recall. Not a news guy, so I don't recall which one it was, but it was the 12th or the 13th. And for me on my timeline, that is Pentecost. There are 4 Pentecosts spoken of in the book of Acts, and all 4 must be accounted for, and they must be counted the way the book of Leviticus tells us to count them. And they are counted from the Sabbath after. And Jesus, we see 4 different instances where Jesus disappeared for a period of time. And he disappeared when he told Mary, "Don't touch me, for I have not ascended to the Father." And the next thing we know, the following week, he's in the upper room with Thomas where they're touching him. So he had to have ascended on that day and I think he performed 4 different wave sheep offerings for 4 different groups: the bride, the tribulation saint, the Jew, and then collectively everyone together. And so we see this again in the book of Acts. They didn't speak of 2 events, and it says the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. So that's indicating to me that there are, in fact, 4. Uh, the Bible reads, these 3 days he was seen of us. And that was speaking after, they were saying that after he appeared to them on the shore with bread and fish, which means in 14 days he appeared to them 3 times. And then from then forward, we don't have another story of him disappearing or coming back on a Sunday or not or nothing like that. Now, so we had 37 days. So we that brings us to Savan 10. Savan 10 is when I believe Jesus ascended. It was a Wednesday. It was an exact same count as if you were to count a Sabbath after and then go 50 days. It's exactly 57 days from when Jesus went to the cross to the day he rose. And of course, like I said, it's a Wednesday, so you have to count from the like I said, it's 57 days, but the Jesus count is 3 days he is seen of us. He was seen of us 40 days. So we have those 3 days plus 37 days. It brings us to Savan 10. Now, they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and now that's Shavuot. That is Shavuot. And they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls that you will count 50 days after Shavuot. My argument has always been they're not sitting in that upper room for 100 days waiting on the Holy Spirit. No, a lot of stuff was going on. When you do the count, you find out that on Sivan 14 was at Pentecost. That's from the Sabbath after 50 days. That's the first count. I'll show you all that here in a moment. And then the second count, and then the third count, but then the fourth count's a little bit different. We see in the book of Acts, I think in book of Acts 2, 8, 10, and then 19, it's quite a distance off. And then we see from Shavuot in the Dead Sea Scrolls, from Shavuot, you count forward 50 days. The problem for the way they're counting it is wrong. He ascended on a Wednesday. I think he ascended exactly 57 days after he went to the cross at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But the book of Leviticus is super clear. You will count from the Sabbath after. And that's where they go wrong. They try to count 50 days from when he ascended. They don't actually know when he ascended. They're using the sliver moon as to when he ascended. They don't actually know when the Sabbath after is because they're not adhering to um, a stationary or a static calendar, meaning it never ever changes. It never changes. It is the same. For example, like I said, Sivan 10 will always be a Wednesday. It'll never stop being a Wednesday, but the Sabbath after is a Saturday. And from there, when you count, you come to you ironically, and when I finally figured this out and counted it right, I come to Pentecost or the Feast of New Wine being on the 2nd of Av, which is July 17th plus 8 hours because of those 4 minutes per day, which puts us into Av 3. That's where the extra time came from. The Dead Sea Scrolls say that the Feast of New Wine or Pentecost is in a 50-day count. They say a 50-day count after he ascended is going to be Av 3. Now, some are trying to put the Feast of New Wine on Tisha B'Av, which is a horrible day. It's the day the temples were destroyed. It's the day that they went into their graves and were killed. And 15,000 of them every year for 40 years were killed. And it was a lot of trauma on the day. I don't think that day even remotely relates to a Pentecost or a Feast of New Wine. And so when you, and again, you have to put the math on a timeline, and the math alone won't allow for the Feast of New Wine to land any further than the 2nd of Av or the 3rd of Av, looking at a stellar calendar as opposed to a solar calendar. So let me get into the pictures. I'm going to try to run through this a little bit quick for you all. If I can hit buttons faster. Let me move myself up and out of the way. All right. So here we are. Like I said, Jesus goes to the cross. He gives up the ghost at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a Wednesday. On a Wednesday, Jesus ascended. The way we count to this is not a correct count, but I put it here anyway because you must count from the Sabbath after. But it's just ironic to me how it matches all of these counts over here. This one also matches, but that's not the correct way to count. The correct way to count is when Jesus rises, don't touch me, for I have not ascended to the Father. He disappears. He returns 8 days later. He returns 8 days later. They to Thomas in the upper room. Bible super clear on this day, so that's 7 days, and then we have to, how do you say, pattern is prophecy or prophecy is pattern. Why am I going to say that the wave sheaf offering happened on the day they caught the 153 fish? Because in the book of Leviticus, you have a week of unleavened bread. Then you have a week of no bread, but there's a little tricky part in there. It says you will count from the Sabbath after when they came into the land. When did they come into the land? On Nisan 10. What's the Sabbath after? Well, it's right here. It's Nisan 17. But that's the problem. It's no bread, but that's the week of unleavened. In one instance, they're supposed to eat unleavened bread, but in the other instance in Leviticus, they're to eat no bread. So we go to the following week because that's also a Sabbath. Every Saturday after that date is the Sabbath after. So the Sabbath after that is right here. And then we wind up over here on, so this, when you count from the Sabbath after, you count, you go through this, sorry, I'm stumbling here. When you go through the Sabbath after, you can't do on this one because this is unleavened bread. You can't do it on this one because this is the week of no bread. This week from the 6th to the 13th, or from Nisan 21 to Nisan 28, there's no bread. But what happens during this? This is the time he sees Thomas in the upper room. So we have to go to this Sabbath because the Bible's expressly clear that you account from the Sabbath after. And we wind up here. After this Sabbath is another Sunday. So that's how I arrive at the wave sheaf offering on a Sunday. This is the week of no bread. Jesus shows up on the shore with bread and fish. He couldn't have done it at any point prior to the 13th. It had to be at some point after the 13th, and it had to be after a Sabbath. So here we are. This is the only open date. So in 14 days here, he was seen of them 3 times. The Bible says he was seen of us for 40 days, 3 plus 37. And when you count it out, you come down here to the 70th day of the year, Sivan 10. Then when you count, and this is the mistake they're making, they're trying to count straight from here 50 days, and you can't. The Bible in Leviticus is abundantly clear that you will count from the Sabbath after. So since this is a Wednesday, you come over here and you will go all the way down here to this Sabbath after. This is the Sabbath after. I've on this chart placed, or actually, I didn't, but Sister Sandy did, circles, triangles, and squares to line them all up with each event. Number one, and number one would all line up together as a circle. I mean, a square, a triangle, and a circle. All of these would line up together. So when you count from the Sabbath after, which is this is the Sabbath after Jesus rose. Jesus rises on Shavuot. Sabbath after is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the day that Moses throws down the tablets. This is Pentecost and the Feast of New Wine. It happens on July 17th. My timeline has gone quiet until July 17th or July 16th when Moses throws down the tablets. However, there is a good argument to be made that on June 12th at night, June 13th, 21 days later, the Prince of Persia withheld me for 21 days. We land here on July 3rd, July 4th. Very high watch days. And I wouldn't have seen that, but the Billboard for Christ found that. And then once again, 1, 2, 3 weeks, 21 days brings us to Tisha B'Av. This is a bad day. This might be the day that we could be raptured on Av 2, Av 9. The raven and dove are sent out on Av 10, according to every count that I could figure out in the account of Noah. Mathematically, all the numbers are correct, and mathematically, the Hebrew dates are correct. I would always argue that the year starts on March 17th. There's no such thing as a full moon, sliver moon, any moons whatsoever have anything to do with the beginning of a month or the beginning of a year. It's mathematically not going to work. You will never get 150 days from when the flood started to the cross. But ironically, this timeline does. This timeline exactly gets the 150 days. We don't start our year on the equinox because the equinox is unreliable. It goes from the 21st to the 20th to the 19th. It bounces back and forth. It is not stationary. You would have to revise this timeline every single year. And when they knew about the day of equal parts, which was the day there was exactly 12 hours a day, 12 hours at night, you can't know that when the sun crosses the equator when you're standing in Israel. I suppose some mathematicians could do that, but your average farmer could walk outside with a stick, put it in the ground on a sundial, and figure out which day is 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night. And I feel like God is speaking to all of us, not those with with the highest IQs in society to figure this out. And then we're supposed to trust those people. No, you ought to be able to be just an average guy like me, walk outside, drop a stick in the ground, and figure out when 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night is. So high watch days are coming up here on, where did they go? On July 3rd, 4th. And then for me, it starts on July 16th. And this whole time right in here is super high watch, especially Elul 1, which is August 15th. And that's the day Jesus was baptized. And then he went out to be tempted for 40 days. He did that for 40 days. And then here's where he started his ministry on Yom Kippur. A lot of people like to say he was baptized on Yom Kippur. He was not. He was baptized 40 days earlier. And then here is where he began his ministry. And 3 days later, the Bible says, 3 days later, his first miracle was to turn water to wine over here in September the 27th. I think personally that the Antichrist is going to reveal himself right here. I think at any point between here, what day? Let me see. Any point between here, day 110 to 192, any point in the next 72 days, we could be raptured. I've never called, I get these comments all the time. I don't get it. I am not picking a rapture date. I am setting a higher watch date, and I am also using other people's dates and putting them on the timeline. July 3rd, July 4th mean nothing on my timeline, but it's very interesting. The math that he found leading up to that, very, very interesting. Um, so yes, I watch it. I watch everyone's dates because who knows? Maybe they're right. And I still feel like when we're about a week away from the actual rapture, and we've seen some really huge events that we were like, oh man, this is it. We're gonna go. And then nothing happens. And I think what that's doing is separating the sheep from the goats. It's separating those who are truly watching and truly waiting for this day from those who are anybody who's working towards their salvation, or they're like the rich man walking up to Jesus saying, I've done all of these things. Those kind of people are being weeded out. They're not actually saved. Uh, and then by definition, they might be saved from the lake of fire, but they're not actually saved unto going into pre-tribulation or rapture. So let me keep going here. I showed you these are the four different Pentecosts that are found in the book of Acts. It was a study done by Robert J. Morgan, and he has assigned the Jewish Pentecost, the Samaritan Pentecost, the Gentile Pentecost, and the Cosmopolitan Pentecost. This is the Pentecost that fully come, July 17th. This is the last Pentecost. That's what that means. The Pentecost that fully come, it's on July 17th, and it is exactly from the Sabbath after 50 days after Shavuot, after Ascension Day. All right. And again, we find this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Feast of New Wine. Everybody's talking about it, and it is absolutely accurate. The third day of the fifth month. I showed the second day of the fifth month, and that kind of stumped me for a moment until I realized these people are using a solar calendar. I'm using a stellar calendar, a 364-day calendar. I'm aware that the Dead Sea Scrolls use a 364-day calendar, but they do account for the 4 minutes per day. So if you say that sunrise in Israel without daylight savings time is 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. even, it would probably be about 7 a.m. this time of year on July 17th minus the day of how you call the daylight savings time. It would be about 7, and if you add 8 hours to that, you wind up at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's very interesting that 3 keeps popping up. But because it'd be 3, yes, it'd be sunset, 3 o'clock in the morning. So by that time, you are on the third day of the fifth month. All right. When I see this in Leviticus, God is fully aware that there's going to be 4 wave sheaf offerings. This is generic. This is not telling you that there's only one. This is only telling you how to count it. And you shall count unto you from the morrow, meaning in the future, not yesterday, it's Sunday. Pentecost is Sunday. Don't count from Sunday. We count by the Sabbath. And don't count from the yesterday Sabbath and start counting. No, you go forward to the next Sabbath and you begin counting. And when you go to the next Sabbath, the moral Sabbath, from the date they brought the wave sheaf offering, it doesn't tell you how many wave sheaf offerings there were. This is what stumped me for years. For years, I had the old timeline. I had the count going from one Pentecost to the next, and it just was wrong because the Bible's clear. You shall count from the morrow after the Sabbath. You shall count by the Sabbaths, not by Sundays, not by whenever you feel like it, but by the Sabbaths. And then you go 50 days or 49 days, even unto the next day. And guess what? That makes it a Sunday again. And that's how you count those. All right. Let me get past that. Somebody was asking me about the math that what's his name did Rock Island Books. Rock Island, CJ Lovick. They was asking me about his math, and I was like, well, I don't count from when Abraham was born or from when his promise was given to him in 1847. But Rock Island Books is absolutely correct. 4,900 years, that's the 0 year, but 4,900 years later will bring you to the end of everything, to the end of everything, the end of the 1,000 year millennium, the end of Satan's little time. I think it's 22 years. He thought 21. I think that 0 year has caught him a little bit, but he counts 44 Jubilee cycles of 49. That's where he comes up with that. So, but at any rate, I used um, Joshua entering into the promised land. I used a different marker than he used. He used, and I had somebody call me out on this, and they were actually correct. I uh, I have this wrong. It's not 1948 BC. It's 1,948 years from creation. It's 2,056 years BC. The reason it's so difficult to count this is because Abraham is right at the 2,000 year mark. It's 2,000 years from creation to Abraham, and from Abraham to Jesus is 2,000 years. So he's right there at it, and it's really hard to. I had them backwards. That's all I'm going to say. I have 2056 shouldn't be there. You can see the numbers are wrong, and then I had it reversed with this one. At any rate, did you know people are like 1948 AD? What are you talking about BC? 1948 is when the promise from creation. 1948 from creation, the promise was given to Abraham, and then Isaac is born 100 years later, and that's what. Oh, excuse me, I had to wake up really early. That's what Isaac, that's what C.J. Lovick was talking about when he did his. He did his 44 years. I did mine 53 years to when Joshua enters the promised land. And so 53 times 49. A Jubilee cycle is 49. It's not 50. If it were 50, none of this would match. I know you're trying to do simple math and say, well, the planet is 6,000 years old. It's not. It's 6,000. We are now in the year 6,028. As a matter of fact, we're not in the year 2025 because of this goofy 0 year that monk made a mistake on in 525 AD. If it wasn't for him, we would still be counting from creation. It would be 0 here, and we would have counted forward. We would have been in the year right now, 6,028. But God allowed all these things in order to keep everyone confused, mostly evil, confused about when things actually are. So we see the one thing we differ, me and CJ Lubbock, is Adam was actually in the garden for 7 years. He was not in the garden for 35 years. He's trying to find this 35 years, which I found 33 and a half years of Jesus, 6 months of Exodus 12 being changed, and Noah on the ark for 1 year. So we're going to go forward. September 24th, 2025, I believe, is when the Antichrist is going to reveal himself. We have to be out of here before then. We have to be gone before then. We are in a Jubilee year. This is a Jubilee year. From right now, going forward, it's 7 years until the next Jubilee year. Yes, there are two Jubilees running in tandem. One began at creation, one began when Adam was kicked out of the garden. That's why we have 7 years of beautiful bliss in the garden and 7 years of tribulation at the end. And in the center, we have whatever 14 minus, we have 6,020 years in the center. 7 of those are tribulation. So, I believe that by September 24th, the Antichrist is going to reveal himself. He's the great imitator, the great liar. He is going to try to imitate Jesus, and this is when Jesus began his ministry. And it is also possible he might use August 15th, 40 days earlier, when Jesus was baptized, and the Holy Spirit sat down on him. I don't know if Satan would be able to mimic such a thing. He might be able to with CGI stuff. I don't know, but he might try something on August 15th, which just means we have to go a little bit earlier than I thought. I mean, I think we have to go now. I've been thinking we have to go now since March 16th. But I don't believe well, I know we can't be here to see the Antichrist revealed. Anybody who loses that position of a pre-tribulational rapture never was involved with the pre-tribulational rapture. They were just along for the ride. Anybody who actually is involved in the pre-tribulational rapture has plenty of evidence to know the pre-tribulational rapture is going to happen, and the only way that any of us will ever change our minds is if the Antichrist is revealed. Once that happens, then we will know. But prior to that, no preterists, no mid-trib, no post-trib, no, none of them will ever convince us. And they try, and it baffles my mind. They come into my comment section trying to convince me. It's not going to work. Until that Antichrist is revealed, you won't convince me because you're wrong. And once the rapture happens and the Antichrist is revealed, you will realize you made a huge mistake. You made a huge mistake. The temple will be built by January the 11th of 2026. That gives them what? October, November, December, January. That gives them 4 months to build that temple after the rapture occurs. Actually, right at 4 months. I didn't realize it was exactly 4 months. But yeah, 4 months after the Antichrist reveals himself, he'll have 4 months to build that temple, and we have to go at any second. And all we're seeing every single day with volcanoes and earthquakes and world events and tornadoes just striking up. You saw what happened in China with all that water. It's insane. It's an insane amount of water has flooded China. So the earth is convulsing. It's going into labor, and it is about to give birth to all of the bride that will be raptured out of here pre-tribulation. Can't be convinced otherwise until I see the Antichrist, and I am confident that we are not going to see the Antichrist. This is why I use this day. March 16th is 12 hours a day, 12 hours at night. It is not that's too far. That's the first day of the year. This is the last day of the year, March 16th. This is the day Lazarus died. This is the day Jesus told his disciples, "Oh, this is terrible. Lazarus died. Let's sit down for 2 days, and then we'll walk for 2 days to get to him." And on the fourth day, he raised him up here on the 20th. That was his friend, man. Why did you sit still? Why didn't you move? Why did you hear that news and just sit still? Because it was Rosh Hashanah. Exodus 12. This now is ahead of your year. It was Rosh Hashanah. He died here. He was told, no, he died here. Well, the two witnesses went 2 days earlier, but here's where he was told, and Jesus admitted that he has in fact died, and he sits still 2 days. Then he walks 2 days, and he raises Lazarus on the 20th. This timeline, you can go on the 16th in any year. This is the year 2025 right here. Go 600 years into the future to 2600. Guess what? It's the same exact day, but the equinox just bounces around the moon. Forget about it. You can't do anything with the moon. That thing will not help you. The first is not this, and the 15th is not that. This is flat out the last day of the year. This is this is Adar 31. This is Adar 31 right here. All right. Whoa. Sorry about that. A part of that kidney stone came out after a year. I sent that picture to my wife. I apologize that that's in there. Okay. Oh, this is let's see. Then said he unto me, "Fear not, Daniel, from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and chasten thyself before God. Thy words were heard, and I came for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, Iran, withstood me 21 days. Love the old English, 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes." I went back in to reread it several times. That's why I took pictures of this to see if there was another conversation of 21 days, because it's really strange how it's exactly 21 days from when that bombing happened on Iran. I think that's when Israel began their campaign against Iran, was on the 12th at night and the 13th. I think it was the 12th there, the 13th there. And 21 days lands on July 3rd, July 4th. And then 21 days later lands on the 9th of Av. Found that really interesting. But I could not find the 21 days repeated Kevin Spinebreaker, the guy in my little group. Like I said before, we all have our little groups and we kind of run things past each other. And Spinebreaker's kind of as a matter of fact kind of guy. And if it's not, doesn't make sense, he's like, yeah, no. And so, but he says that this reminds him of the 10 virgins. Now, the 10 virgins have nothing to do with the bride. Absolutely nothing to do with the bride. The 10 virgins, the five with oil, they all fell asleep. But what came to get the five virgins with oil was a bridegroom. And a bridegroom cannot be called a bridegroom until he has his bride with him. We were already in heaven when this event took place. But I find it interesting that on July 18th, which is the Pentecost, the Feast of New Wine for me, that this event takes place. So maybe the rapture does happen back here, and then Jesus comes back to see where's July 4th up here. So that's the first quarter, July 2nd. That's interesting. July 2nd and then the 18th. That's very interesting. But as you can see, the full moon here does not land. The full moon does not land on the 15th at all. And if you said it's the 15th, then it lands on a Thursday, which doesn't fit either. The moon, it's in and of itself, has no bearing on when the beginning of it. That's why their count will never come. They can't, they'll count a portion. They'll count a little section and put it up there and go, look, I counted this little section. It fits. And it kind of will. But put that into an entire year, like this timeline I built, and it has to cross-reference back and forth between every event. Noah's flood, the cross, the 153rd day is being the day Jesus rises. All these things, the ark settled, the reverse the curse, all these different things will not match if you try to use this stuff here. But I just find it interesting. Kevin says that 5 with oil, 5 without oil. And I always find that interesting that it lands. Well, this time it literally lands on Feast of New Wine on Pentecost. Very interesting. Super interesting. All right, where am I at? Oh, I Heart Yeshua. Go watch her video. She's very well spoken and very intelligent. She did a video here where the moon goes through all 7 churches, and of course, she does a much better explanation of that than me. I'm not into this type of watching, but it always super intrigues me when people like her are in that type of watching. And yeah, she did a very good job. And yes, I liked it. I just took a picture before I liked her video. So, but yeah, she does very well spoken, very intelligent, very fun to watch. All right. All right, let me get off here and the comments, I really appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. The math that you're all doing is fantastic. Uh, you're not going to convince me that it's the moon. Just isn't going to happen. Sorry, I've been doing this too long, and I have known that Chodesh means month for a very long time, even though they are trying to call it a Yarich or Saline. Chodesh simply does not mean month. It means, I mean, moon. Freudian slip. It means Chodesh means month. It doesn't mean Chodesh. Yeah, it means month, and Saline and Yarich mean moon. So, and out of all the translations, there's never an accident where the Bible accidentally called a month a Yarich or Saline, simply because it's not the same. It is not the same. All right. So I am going to get off here, quick video, and I'm going to go get on to his live departure heaven, which by the time you hear this, I will probably not have this uploaded by then. So we will chat with you all again later. Remember to go to a quiet. Listen, the reason we do all this high watch days is not to tell you, oh, we missed the date. That's not what this is about. This is to give you any new listeners to this, is to give you a sense of urgency. This day is coming. It's coming quickly, and it could happen. It could happen at any moment. There's literally a trigger event that's about to take place that we haven't seen yet, or we see. Something tells me the higher ups know, because they appear They're barricading the White House. And what in the world are you barricading in the White House for? Something's going on. Something huge is going on, and they're preparing for it. And they know there's things that they can't do until we're gone. And they're just chomping at the bit for when we're gone so that they can implement these insane things. And trust me, the Antichrist is right there talking to them, just like the Holy Spirit talks to you. The Antichrist is talking to them. Tell, oh no, we're going to win. No, God has no interest in this place. Mankind is completely. He's going to take those few. Get ready for it. But after that, it's just us, man. He's not going to destroy us. Satan has got these people completely buffaloed, and they're going to fall for it. So just keep watching, keep looking up, stay encouraged. Go tell somebody. Go tell somebody if you see me go. And that way, when you do go, they'll know exactly what it is. And I have a feeling that that's literally brass tacks, what you need to say to somebody. So when it does happen, it'll be fresh in their minds and they'll be like, okay, I know what just happened. No, it wasn't aliens. They told me that this event would take place. That's when the big lie is going to come so heavily onto those people. So, all right, we will chat with you all again later.